Pop, pop.
Bears. Beats. Battlestar.
Stay on target.
You can't handle the truth.
Stay on target.
It's over 9,000! What, 9,000?
With great power comes great responsibility.
There's only one God, man. And I'm pretty sure he doesn't dress like that.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to Pop Culture Redemption, a show that is dedicated to helping the church have a better vision of God at work in popular culture. Today, we're really excited. We get to dive into the movie Spider-Man No Way Home. Talk about hitting all the right notes in this one. We got nostalgia, we got William Dafoe, we got the original Doc Ock from the original Spider-Man movies. We got it all. Shoot, we had a great time finding Jesus in this one. Then I sit down with a friend of the show, Bishop Ryan Mackey again. If you've been with Pop Culture Redemption for a little while, you'll remember him from our Soul episode in season 1. And we have a fantastic conversation on finding God in 90s music, actually. We're talking Nirvana, we're talking Smash Mouth, Dave Matthews Band, Matchbox 20, Beastie Boys, Rage Against the Machine, and so much more. And actually, Ryan has curated a pretty cool 90s flashback playlist on Spotify that we actually have linked in the show notes. So if you're interested in I think it has over like 200 songs. If you're interested in that, check out the show notes. You can get the link to that playlist. We really appreciate Ryan for both being on the podcast and for sharing that playlist with us. I know I've been vibing to this playlist all week. A couple other things before we dive into the show today. Big Picture PopCR stuff we're really excited about. Number one is first ever. We're announcing that we are having our first ever live show on January 17th, which is a Friday night here in McPherson, Kansas. We'll have more information coming on location, time, and how to RSVP on our social media platforms in future podcasts in the weeks to come. But just go ahead and block out Friday night, January 17th in your calendar, because we want you to be there. It's going to be really cool. We're really excited about it. We got some creative ideas going, and we want you to be a part of it. So Friday night, January 17th, block it out. We'll have more information coming. Number two is also Kim actually just launched our PopCR TikTok. So now Pop Culture Redemption has a TikTok profile and page, or whatever they call it. I know nothing about TikTok, if that's not already obvious, but Kim and Jacob and Priscilla know a lot more about it than I do, especially Kim, and she launched it for us and is running that. And so if you could go on there and follow us, if you could like our stuff, that would just be a huge help in launching that platform. Again, you can just search Pop Culture Redemption on TikTok, or you can use the link in the show notes. That would be really helpful for us to jumpstart that profile. So I think that's all I got before we start. So we're going to dive in. Here again is Spider-Man No Way Home.
Welcome to Pop Culture Redemption. This is Kim here.
This is Kim speaking.
This is Kim speaking. Welcome to Pop Culture Redemption. I'm going to pass it over to Connor.
Oh, appreciate that. This is Connor. Welcome to Pop Culture Redemption. I'm going to pass it over to Jacob.
This is Jacob. Welcome to Pop Culture Redemption. I'm going to pass it to Jordan.
That was weird. I'm Jordan Summers. And for every like this episode gets, this episode will have one more like.
Amen, brother. And we are Pop Culture Redemption. We're here to help the church have a better vision of God's moving and working in popular culture.
Mm-hmm.
And we started the episode weird today, but you know what? That's okay, because sometimes you got to keep it weird.
Sometimes?
Also, is that recording right now?
Yeah.
Okay, we're good. We just had it's just a prompting, Sometimes you just get prompted.
Prompting
If you see a red
in
light,
the spirit.
Yeah,
To get started.
So, and sometimes, there's no way home. But there's always a way
Don't
home.
realize that you don't have to put out a red light.
Roxanne!
All right, let's go. We
Aye.
are going all the way in on Spiderway, no man home.
I think we just found the title for this episode.
Spiderway, no man home.
Do you know the way, my brothers?
Why are you running? Do you know the way?
Do you know?
Oh my goodness.
Spider-Man No Way Home is the movie we're doing. and we're going all in on it. So Jordan is going to start us off, hopefully get us back on track. Hopefully get us on track. We haven't been on track yet.
To start with these fun facts, the first fun fact is I now want to get a tattoo that says Spider-Way, no man home.
And when people ask you, was that just like a mistake that your was like, what are they called? Like tattoo artist made? You're just like, nope. I wanted it that way.
Drunk.
Parentheses, yes, I asked for this.
Oh, I should make it as a sign, like 3D printed as a sign, and put it on my front door. Spider-Way, no man home.
There we go.
It's good.
Thank you.
Okay,
No
for the
trespassing.
real fun facts. So first of all, the film is a massive success.
I'd say so.
That almost single-handedly kept ticket sales afloat during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Wow.
So that's fun. This movie was planned from the beginning.
Wait, like the Tobey Maguire beginning?
Like the beginning of time, God knew.
Genesis 1:1, God made the heavens and the earth. Genesis 1:2, God planned for Spider-Man No Way Home.
Spider-Way, no man home.
So they were making the first of the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. When they were making the first of the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, they had big plans. Apparently, they weren't worried about Spidey fatigue, even though we had already had 5 movies featuring the character in the previous 2 decades. This sequel was planned while Spider-Man Homecoming was still in production.
Wow. No wonder it was so good.
Well, they're worried about Spider-Man fatigue. They've literally had 5 Spider-Man movies in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
No one is fatigued.
Right?
No,
I'll
give
watch
us
another
more.
one.
Well, I guess not 5 years, but
Well,
10 years.
3 Tom Holland movies,
And 2
both
Spider-Verses.
Spider-Verses.
Yeah.
And when did The Amazing Spider-Man come
Well, that
out?
was one of the 5 that
Okay.
he was talking
I will watch
about.
another Spider-Man, but I will not watch another Kung Fu Panda. So
It's fair. It's fair.
checks
It's fair.
out.
Okay. A big split almost muddied the movie. Holland's Spider-Man is part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. However, these movies are not made by Marvel and Disney, who owns Marvel. Instead, they are Sony movies, and Spider-Man is in the MCU because of a deal between the two companies, which you may or may not have already known about. That deal fell apart in August 2019,
Oh.
and it seemed Spider-Man was going to be out of the MCU. This naturally didn't sit well with fans. Eventually, the two sides reconciled, keeping Holland's Peter Parker in the MCU.
Yeah, Sony was like, pony up, Disney.
We wouldn't have had the scene that, like, I don't feel well, Mr. Stark. Like, that'd have been so sad if we didn't get that.
Yeah, this is a
Yeah.
fun one.
Right.
A Christmas classic becomes an inspiration. You know, we're getting close to Christmas here.
We are.
Once McKenna and Somers, which is totally like the Canadian version of my name, moved beyond their initial Craven idea, they stumbled on a different story style. They found inspiration in the holiday staple, It's a Wonderful Life. That movie's about a man who wishes he was never born and then saw what life would be like if that were true. The hook for No Way Home became Peter wishing that nobody knew he was Spider-Man. So basically, It's a Wonderful Life is
yeah.
the inspiration
Huh.
for...
It's the gift that just keeps on giving.
Yeah. And there was another one that I saw that I wanted to bring out. The movie had a fun working title. Huge movies like this always have working titles for production to try and throw fans off the scent. This was even more necessary for this. The working title... what is this word?
Spider-Way. No.
That was the word title. Connor knew it.
For No Way Home, the obfuscating working title, I'm trying to say that word, obfuscating, was Serenity Now.
Never.
This
No,
is,
that
of
would
Hate
not
course,
that. Hate
a
that.
catchphrase from Seinfeld.
Oh,
Oh.
Nice.
cool.
I'm going to make
Voice.
you... Like, that's going to be the transition now for all of our episodes.
Do it. I dare you.
Love that.
This has been Fun Facts with Jordan.
Yes.
Skip it up. Spider-Way, no man home. Okay, let's dive in. Rejoice, reject, and
Redeem. I was gonna go with
Redeem?
you and you stopped.
I did.
Awkward.
I know. Sorry.
Anyway, whatever.
He just likes to leave people hanging
I'll work on it. I'll be better next year.
like a spider.
Like a. All right, we're going into Rejoice. We get to name in this movie what is good, and I feel like Jake's got a lot to say in this section,
I do.
so I'm throwing it to Jake first.
I think you wanted to
Okay.
go last.
No. That wasn't it. No.
Oh, okay.
No, you want to go last in the next one.
Outside of this just being an awesome crowd pleaser movie, that actually went well.
Crowd
I appreciate the Spider-Man meme. Peter
Yeah.
Parker? No, or sorry, Peter?
Peter.
No, Peter Parker.
No, Spider.
That's fantastic. No, my real object is seeing healthy male friendships, even if it's all the same person. Because it was the scene where, I mean, they called Andrew Garfield the amazing. Like, just say it. I'm amazing.
Yeah,
'Cause
I really needed to hear.
He's
Yeah,
the
you know, I
amazing
needed to hear
Spider-Man.
that. Yeah.
But like, that is a great example of how friends should help friends out of negative thoughts.
Iron sharpens iron.
Yes. And sometimes it can be a smooth process like that. Like iron sharpening iron's usually not exactly a smooth or feel goody thing. But like I feel like we've gotten better. We've gotten better at this in culture, but also we haven't. Because usually it's like, well, I'm thinking these dark thoughts. I'm just gonna try to keep them to myself. But we need friends that help us bring that to the surface. 1. 2, we need to be able to lovingly and kindly speak to that truth. Because it was Garfield, it was the amazing Spider-Man going, I'm lame. Then youth pastor Spider-Man's like, I'm sorry, I want to go back to the I'm lame part. And they're just like kindly and
So
lovingly
good.
speaking over him.
Yeah.
Like that's the example, people. Not like, like how could you even think that? You're like, that's so stupid. Why would you, well, just stop thinking that. How, like, stop being sad. Stop being mad. When does that ever help?
Or
Like,
stop making fun of my best friend.
yeah. I hate you. That's actually a bad example of me saying that. But no, I just
Stop making fun of him.
I thought this was a good example of, first of all, male friendship actually being able to speak the truth, but also just friendship in general, being able to speak truth to negative thoughts.
Yeah. That'll preach.
Mm.
How about you, Kim? What you got?
Woo. We see Spidey,
Which
Tom
one?
Holland,
Okay.
having some self-sacrifice, especially at the end. And my takeaway from that, my rejoice, is that self-sacrifice and doing the right thing is important, even when you aren't getting credit for it.
Woo!
Like, nobody's gonna know,
That's good.
and you're doing the
Right.
right thing still. And it sucks for you sometimes. Like, it's easier to take credit for things or to just not do the right thing, the hard thing. But it's important to do it, even if no one knows that you've done it.
Yeah.
God knows, though.
That'll preach.
It's almost like Jesus said, if you're going to pray, go into your closet, make sure
Yeah.
nobody sees you, and your reward shall be given to you in heaven.
So stay in the closet.
Don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing.
Yep.
Sorry, that's gonna get me canceled.
Canceled.
That is not
It
the
was a
spider
funny
way.
joke. It was a funny joke. Stop.
That is not the
Don't
spider way.
make fun of me.
I have a lot to rejoice. I think this is spilled.
Very
apple
glad the
cider
recorders
everywhere.
on this side of the
It's
table.
just a little bit.
Just
Don't
a-
worry.
just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. I thought the Dr. Octavius says you could have just left us to die.
Yeah.
Why didn't you? And MJ says because that's not who he is.
Mm.
And I was like, Jesus, you know, Jesus could have just left us to die.
Woo!
And why
Turns
didn't
out,
he?
while we were still sinners,
Because you better
Christ died for us.
He also
good.
could have called 10,000 angels to destroy the world and set him free.
Right.
10,000 reasons.
So it's not who he is. Amen, Jesus.
Sorry, guys.
The Peter Tingles. Peter Tingles.
I'm just gonna
Hate
start
that.
calling that like the prompting the Holy Spirit.
That's what.
like
That's my
spirit
rejoice.
tingle.
Yeah.
It's the spirit tingle.
This is the Holy Spirit tapping you on the shoulder. Hey, pay attention. Something's coming. Yeah, I'm serious.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
the
yeah.
spirit tingle.
Yeah.
Is that a puberty thing?
Is your tingle tingling?
Okay. Tingle.
Time out!
Tingle.
Time out!
Tingly tingle.
I I'm tapping out. Gotta go.
I'm out. Kid's like, and I'm off the podcast. Okay.
Adios.
Bye.
Man,
I'm
we
out.
got like what?
This has been
4
Pop Culture
episodes
Redemption.
Yeah, that's right. And then I liked when at the end, when MJ's trying to reason with Peter, like, no, we can fix it. We can still fix it. And he's like, there's nothing we can do. I like that because that's reality. Oftentimes, like bad things happen, and oftentimes there's nothing we can do. And it's just kind of like sometimes you can't, this is how it is. You can't undo it. You can't get around the sucky part. Like it's just, and you just try to make, the best decision in a cruddy situation that you can. You try to still honor God, obviously. And, and it helps us to, it reminds us to lean into God and to trust in his plan when we're like, there's nothing there's literally nothing I can do to change this situation. So
It's remembering that Jesus still calls us to sacrifice.
Yeah. And
a good thing.
and it's an acknowledgement of the reality that we're not in control.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that sucks. Oftentimes, it's easy for us as Christians to be like, hey, we're not in control. Thank God. Like, praise God. So blessed.
Right, but
like
that's
he's in
normally
control.
whenever-
Everything's going to be good. And oftentimes, like, things are not good. And we still believe God is in control.
Yeah.
And we still know that we're not in control.
Mm-hmm.
And we sit in the pain of that sometimes. In the pain of waiting for things to be made right.
Stop preaching to me. Stop it.
So I rejoice that they showed that. I thought they showed it really well.
Iron sharpens iron.
There you go. Amen, brother.
Stop.
Anybody else have anything they want to rejoice?
That is it for me. Actually, the scene where is it Andrew Garfield who catches? No.
Yeah.
Catches
MJ.
Oh.
Yay! Finally, a little redemption there.
Well, it's
Well, that's a guess redemption, but I'm rejoicing in that.
Well,
Yes.
I feel like that is a moment where you can see somebody's pain helping bring healing to others.
Yep.
Because that would not have been as, he's a superhero, so that's still important to him. But that might not have been as, he might not have caught that.
Mm-hmm.
He might not have seen it.
Right.
Had he not gone through,
And he was like, "It's not happening again. Not on my watch."
Well, that can be, I feel like that needs to be our response whenever we find healing in Jesus, is instead of looking at people in their own crap and going like, well, you just need to clean your lives up. It's no, I've been through that. That's not happening to them. Not on my watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nice.
That's it for me.
That's it. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be back in a second.
I want to rejoice.
Get out of here.
I want to rejoice. What's the aunt's name? I can't.
May.
Aunt May. I want to rejoice Aunt May dying. It's about time. Am I right? We're going to break anyway. So.
Welcome back to Pop Culture Redemption. My name's Connor, and I'm lazy because I get to start this reject segment here. And it's the same reject segment as episode 6. when we did.
And 5?
No, I did a different reject in
Okay.
5. But in episode 6, we did Across the Spider-Verse.
So good.
So if if you're a long time PopCR listener, you get to hear me get on my soapbox again about how Spider-Man needing to be alone to protect himself and others is a load of hooey.
Load of what?
It's a load of hooey. It's a bunch of garbage.
Hoopla.
Garbage. So, I think obviously the intentions of Spider-Man, from my vantage point, are good intentions, right? It's just an unhealthy reaction to past trauma and loss. It does not guarantee the safety of others to anyone, right? And we just acknowledge loneliness is not good. Ecclesiastes, scripture, tells us 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their labor. If either one of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. In this movie, we saw not just one other Spider-Man, but 2 other Spider-Men come around Tom Holland Spider-Man. That's confusing. That's a confusing way to put that. But
Peter?
there were
No,
3
Peter
Spider-Men,
Parker?
and they all helped each other when they needed it. They all needed each other's help, and they all helped each other. And then at the end of this movie, Tom Holland Spider-Man decides
Better be alone.
it's better to be alone.
Mm.
And
Sad. Wrong.
and we look at this and we say, oh, he made it with good intentions. He made that decision. But ultimately, that's not going to have good fruit.
No.
It's just not. So we see Peter 3, Andrew Garfield, in this movie admit that his loss, grief, and isolation led him to bitterness.
And he said he stopped pulling punches.
Right. And he's still in it. And I think like what you talked about when he saves MJ, that contributes to his healing and the hope of the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man telling him, hey, actually, like MJ and I are working it out. Like, we're making it work. You know, this is an option for you. And that gives him new life. Like I said, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, Peter 2 in this movie. He's shown as the sage Spider-Man.
The youth pastor Spider-Man.
As he should
so
be.
Funny.
Right. And he is in a different spot. So they're all kind of on different spots of the Spider-Man journey here. And so Peter 1 is now back at the beginning of his journey, right? It's like movie 1 and 2, his friend, that was me.
Oh my God.
Weird sound just came out of me.
Like,
welcome to the gross ASMR.
That happened to me though.
Pop
Like
Culture
one
Podcast.
episode, it literally, I heard it and I was like, not addressing it, not
It's
addressing
like,
it. Yeah. And somebody one time was like, it was a throat burp. It doesn't count. And I was like, I've never heard that, but it made me feel better. The throat burp.
So he's
Thwurp.
Tom Holland. I'll try to redeem this. Tom Holland is now back at the beginning of his journey out of isolation. He is back at like square one, all the way back at the beginning. And so it's just not good. This is not good. And I think that when we watch this and culture watches this, I think we can think, oh, that's a hero's, journey to do it all on your own and try to pick yourself up by your bootstraps or whatever and figure it out yourself. And you can do it alone. And you can't. And I'm hoping that the Spider-Verse saga ends with a different ending than the other ones.
I think it's safe to say that Jesus was the only person who could ever go through life alone and actually make it work. And he still had 12 disciples.
Right.
Here we go.
I heard a comedian once say that's Jesus' greatest miracle is he had 12 best friends. He's a man that had 12.
Hard.
He's a man that had 12 best friends.
I mean, really, he had 3 best friends and then he had 9 friends.
Having 9 friends as a man is,
That's
I
right.
feel like, is
as
still
a man
hard.
in his 30s.
Yeah.
Crazy, wild.
Yep.
And he wasn't plugged in.
So I reject isolation, chosen or unchosen. We can't do it on our own.
Bad.
Period.
Okay.
End of story.
It's bad.
So don't try. It's not worth it. It's not good. It sucks. All right, that's all. Who wants to go next?
Okay,
Yep.
mine's quick. You can't fix stuff with the occult, so don't do it. Don't go to.
Oh. Don't go to a wizard?
You went there.
Yeah, that junk doesn't work. Don't go get your palm read and do some tarot. It's not gonna fix anything. Jeez Louise. Anyway, obviously I messed it up here, and then we don't learn our lesson though, because Doctor Strange still do.
Yeah, then the multiverse of badness happens.
And he gets another
Yeah.
eye.
Yeah,
That's a whole
yeah.
other-
Ooh, we'll get there one day, maybe.
One day.
But yeah, no, it doesn't work. So like in reality, I'm rejecting the occultism. That's like really, I get Doctor Strange's character. I get it. I know it's a part of his character. And I'm not going to just jump on a soapbox and be like, oh my gosh, the occult is bad. Because it is. We all know it. But I don't think everyone knows what it is. Like in reality, like what the occult is, because it's slowly becoming a part of our popular culture where it's something we don't even blink an eye at. And it's like, whatever. And I just, I don't think you have to cut out popular culture. You don't have to cut out movies because there's occult stuff in it. You just have to recognize what it is in what it would be in reality versus what it is in fiction.
Yep.
And then just move on and adjust your audience of who you're showing the show to. So if you have a young kid who is into this stuff, maybe have a conversation. Yeah. Versus just like, don't just let it go if you're going to have that conversation with younger audiences or friends. Like, I'm gonna dress up as a wizard and go get my palm read for Halloween. Like, it's a little probably not something we should do.
Well, I'd say it's honestly better to have a conversation about it rather than not letting somebody experience it so that by the time they actually experience it in their real life, they have no way to approach it.
Absolutely. And then they're going to get a word. They're going to go to a psychic and get a word from their dead grandma or something that actually does come true because the enemy is deceitful. And then now they're going to think that's the truth because they never got a word from God like that. That's where I'm at with it. I reject it in, not that it can't just be in film, because it is and it always will be. It's entertaining, but that we as Christians need to know how to interact with it and how to combat it in reality, and how we can have these conversations with friends, family, and children.
So it's all about helping people have better vision about how God is working
In popular culture. Yep, absolutely. That's where I'm at. Yeah.
Somebody should start a podcast about that.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, not it.
What?
1, 2, 3, not it.
Nose goes. Jake, what you got?
Okay. So I guess this is coming in 2 parts.
Love it.
So second part we'll save for redeem, because it's kind of contradictory, but also not. I want to reject trying to fix people, which I realize is a big part of this movie. Because there's I think there's a line between helping and fixing people.
There we go.
I think that that line kind of starts with one of 2 things. The second, both things I see the church try to do. Because the first thing is, I think the first line between helping and fixing people is whether or not they want help.
Mm-hmm.
I think because you can't fix somebody that doesn't want fixing, and that's not help. And I see a lot of people, or I see a lot of church culture trying to, like, oh, well, you're living a life of sin, so you need to come up to my level, and I'm going to help you do that, but because you have to live the exact life that I'm living, because I've got everything figured out. First of all, bullcrap. Second of all, that's not grace.
Absolutely.
The second thing I think is the difference between helping and fixing people is the manner of which we approach those who needing help. And this is where it kind of gets a little interesting and contradictory thing. Because at the very beginning, he does help Doc Ock, right?
Right.
None of the others really go well. But from what I experienced is because Tom Holland had actually had a little bit of an interaction with Doc Ock, with Otto. He got somewhat of an understanding of him, and he was able to fix it. Instead of, I know more than you, I'm at a better place than you, and I'm going to fix you. I don't like that. That's not even what Jesus did, first of all. Jesus had every reason to say, sinner, you need to come to me, but first you need to clean yourself up, because I am perfection brought into the world. Yet he got in the dirt and helped the woman caught in adultery. He told the crowd there, ye without sin cast the first stone, and told the woman, look who is here to condemn you. I actually love what a lot of scholars think of what he was writing in the dirt while they were accusing her, is that he was writing out the 10 commandments in the dirt. And so it's like, well, looking at these 10, anybody want to cast the first stone? I see a lot of the church trying to be the crowd.
Yeah.
This person's caught in sin. Okay, but what about when that happened to you?
Yeah.
Because look at the way that Tobey Maguire and Peter 2 and Peter 3 were able to approach the rest of the villains, because they had already interacted with them. They had understood them. They had learned to care for them. I mean, it was kind of sarcastic, but it was Garfield like, how you doing, Dr. Connors? Like, they had a relationship with them. They knew them. They cared about them, and they wanted them to get better, not because they knew that they were better than them, but because they were at the same level.
Yeah.
And I don't think the church does that well.
Right.
So that's a huge part of my reject. Like when we get back from the break, I'm gonna I have a flip to that. But yeah, that's basically my thing.
Yeah, I think there's a difference too between when we're talking about helping people experience something new or to change or transform. There's a difference between breaking chains and putting restrictions on people. Because Doc Ock, for him, it was a liberation from his bondage that set him free, right? He needed somebody to intervene and set him free. Whereas like Electro,
he liked it.
Right. And so that wasn't necessarily a breaking free, but that was a putting a restriction on, a necessary
Absolutely.
restriction. But
And goblin.
yes, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. But I think that's important for us to consider too when we try to intervene with people, whether they're willing or unwilling.
Absolutely.
I guess is are we doing things that liberate, or are we putting on restrictions of our morality,
Our personal morality.
Mhm.
right? Or even hot take, even like Christian morality, when people don't have a relationship with Christ.
Why are we expecting them to live like
Right.
they do? Mm-hmm.
It doesn't because it talks about like the spirit of life to set you free from the law of sin and death.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The law was only there to show us how condemned we were.
Right. The spirit who gives life. There it is. I was
Yeah.
like, what? I'm
Pastor
missing
was
something
talking
in
about
there.
that this morning. The law was only here to show us how broken we were.
Yeah.
So are we putting the
It
law?
didn't save anybody.
Are we putting the law on people, or are we the spirit
Absolutely.
that leads to life?
I mean,
and
we
freedom?
don't. I feel like sometimes we write people off because of what they've done or the laws, like spiritual laws that they've broken. Well, even our legal system doesn't write people off.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even if you've been convicted of murder, you still have programs available in prison.
Mhm.
So you're like, it's not, why are we writing people off for sinning in any way? Like, they cuss too much, or they've cheated on someone in the past, or they've stolen something, or they were disrespectful to me. Why are we writing them off though? Like, why aren't we loving them still?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And that's just the whole point. If we're coming at it from, you need to meet my standard.
Yeah.
We don't even meet God's.
Yeah.
We can't.
Absolutely. And I'm putting a disclaimer. I'm not talking about abusive people. So
Yeah.
if you need to write off an abuser, you can do that. Like, you don't have to talk to them. I'm not saying the people that
That's
have
getting out of
experienced
trauma. That is a whole different beast
But-
that I feel like we've talked about
But
before.
when you have like a coworker that you don't drive with and you just, I'm not going to talk to them anymore. They bug me. Like, that's not appropriate for us. Or like they party and they do too much and I just don't want to spend time with them and I'm not going to talk to them at the water cooler. Why?
They are in just as much of need as Jesus as we are.
Absolutely.
There we go.
There we go.
All right. And we all reject.
Mhm.
Yeah, we did.
Mhm.
I'm proud of us.
Can't confirm.
Can confirm. All right, we're gonna take a break and we'll come back with Redeem. Welcome back to Pop Culture Redemption. We are doing Redeem now, the namesake of the podcast. Jordan's whispering something that none of us have any idea what he's saying. What are you saying?
Nothing. Literally nothing.
He's just
Fantastic.
vibing.
He's speaking in
Fantastic.
tongues over there.
Nailed it. Nailed it. Okay.
Jake will hear if I did say something and when he goes back to listen. I literally just
it's
said
a message
whisper.
just-
That's all I did.
Oh, it's a message just for you, Jake.
Again, this
Secret
one's a little
message.
different because now we're tying the gospel to culture.
Yep.
We're not just rejoicing good and bad, but now we're making that bridge connection point. So draw us a bridge, Jake.
So you ready for my part two?
Yeah. Give us a
Sweet.
part two.
I'll start with the tweetable quote and then I'll unpack it because
Okay.
it's kind of it goes off of what I was just rejecting, just in a different light. So here we go. Saved people save people. Even though we need to find the line between fixing and helping people,
Mm-hmm.
the joy, the fulfillment of purpose that I saw as soon as Doc Ock came in, he acted like he was all bad, and he grabbed Electro, put the cure on him, and said, "There you go. Saved people save people."
Mhm.
And they're able to approach broken people because they know what it's like. I think this is encouragement to us to say that no matter how broken we are, healing that we receive can be given to others.
Mm.
And it's to an extent where, because we're able to meet people where they're at, that often it might not matter if they want it or not, because you know what, you see the need, you see the brokenness, you see the healing that they can get, and you're able to actually that's what Paul was talking about in somewhere.
Yeah.
Where he said, for the Jews, I became enslaved to the law so that I may win the Jews. To the Gentiles, I was free from the law so that I may win the Gentiles. Because at the end of it, it's just about bringing people healing.
Yeah.
So, and honestly, it's more powerful. It's more effective if we're actually able to recognize our brokenness to help drive us to bring people's brokenness to Jesus.
Yeah.
Kind of contradicts what I just said because it's not like Electra really chose to. He was tricked into it. But he was actually able to get to the heart behind why he wanted that power so much. Because he just said, I just wanted someone to notice me.
Right.
I just wanted to feel powerful. Because he felt like that's actually the only amazing Spider-Man movie I've watched was the second one. I was real confused. But it's because he started the movie with nothing.
Yeah.
He was unseen. He was unheard. He wasn't wanted. He didn't feel like he was enough. And he finally got a little bit of power, even if it was wrong. And all of a sudden, this is what the enemy does. He gives us a taste of what we need, but it just lies to us. Yeah. We know, we can see people's hurt, and we through the eyes of the Holy Spirit, we can see people's hurt and be able to help them find the true heart behind the problem. That's my thing.
Yeah.
I mean, like be Jesus' hands and feet?
Yeah.
Oh.
Saved people. Saved people.
Wow.
To quote Disciple, we're the only face of God that the blind are going to see.
Woo. That's a good
Period.
line.
There you go.
I've never heard you mention Disciple. Is that a band? I just got glared at.
Oh boy.
If looks could kill, Jacob would have just taken 3 shots to the chest. All right, Kim, you want to jump on the end of that?
Yeah. So the quote that stuck out to me is, "We don't need you to save us. We don't need to be fixed." I think that kind of to piggyback off of what Jake was saying, we don't just because we see a need and we might try to help fill a need. We might try to help people. But if they don't want it, then that's our cue.
Yeah.
Like, don't. So if somebody keeps complaining to you, let's say we're back at the coworker. Let's say I have a coworker.
Do you have some problems with coworkers?
No, I love my coworkers. I'm not joking. They're my favorite people. Well, I have a lot of favorite people, but they're one of them. I love them. I'm not talking about my coworkers, but if you have coworkers.
I'm perfect and holy and don't think any bad thoughts about my coworkers.
No,
on the other hand, no.
But they're actually wonderful. So, but let's say you have, I'm just thinking of like, as an adult, who do you spend almost all of your time with?
Right.
Your coworkers.
Right.
Like 40 hours a week at least. But let's say you have this one guy at work and he keeps complaining, I'm so lonely. And then you finally get the opportunity. Hey, do you want to come hang out with me? A bunch of guys and from me and my church, we're going to go to Topgolf. Do you want to come?
He's just like, nah.
I'm not into church people. Okay. That's fine. That doesn't mean you don't keep hanging out with them at work and you don't try to like be kind to them, but they don't want help. They don't want to be saved. If someone doesn't want to be saved, you're just going to push them farther away if you keep trying. If you are kind to them and you're normal to them, then that's, but don't start like hyper evangelizing someone that doesn't want it.
Yeah. If
they don't want it, it's not their time to receive it yet. And you can plant a seed and it's not going to get sown for years to come. Yeah. So all you're going to do is make people really uncomfortable and turn them probably farther away from God. Well,
I think that goes to, do we think that we are filling the need, that we're the thing that fills the need, or is it Jesus?
Absolutely. Because if like, let's say you say that one thing, like, hey, me and my friends, like, we'd love to have you over. We're going to have this thing. And we just like to encourage each other. You know, you can come if you want. If they don't want to come, then they don't have to. But now they know that you have a group of friends that do have these things. So if they're in a pit and they're lonely, next time they get an invite, maybe they'll go, or maybe they might ask about it later.
Yeah. Well, Luke 9, Jesus has a couple people he invites to go with him, and they walk away. There's the man that says, you know, Jesus, I'll come follow you. And he says, well, foxes have dens, birds have nests. The Son of Man has no place to lay his head, right? And the guy just turns away. He doesn't like, no, come back. You've got to follow me.
Yeah.
And like the father of the prodigal son, he says, the son says, you're dead to me. I want my inheritance and I'll leave. He doesn't say, nope, sorry, get back to the farm. He's just,
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he waits.
And he comes back. So
yep.
Doesn't always happen, but if it does, it's a really beautiful thing. So.
Yeah. That's good. My redeem is because oftentimes I think maybe the last couple of these podcasts. I keep talking about freedom for freedom, and we're going to talk about it again. So
It's the
there's
election season.
There you go. not necessarily that kind of freedom.
America.
Not a license to do whatever you want, but setting free from bonds of captivity. Norman Osborn, when he comes into this new world after you have the first introduction where you're like, oh, the Green Goblin's in this movie, when he launches the thing on the bridge after Doc Ock gets captured and all this stuff, and then they get moved into the dungeon, the wizard's dungeon, or whatever.
Did it just turn into a game of D&D?
Yeah,
It basically felt like that.
Yeah.
Roll for initiative.
And so Norman Osborn is ditching the Green Goblin stuff, right? And the mask is on the side of the dumpster, and the mask tells Osborn, "You can't escape me." And I was like, "That is then like that's sin, right? Like we can't. Like I'm powerless to do anything against the enemy, against that dark part of me that I need a savior. I need somebody to do it for me." And Jesus did it. And he can, and he does set people free, and not just free in the sense of like salvation of my soul, but also very tangible freedom today with the things that you struggle with. And it oftentimes is not immediate. Oftentimes it's a process that Jesus pulls us through. But Jesus talks about, I've come to set the captive free, set the oppressed free, to give recovery to the sight to the blind, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. He's not just talking about, I have come to save souls for eternity, although he has done that. But he has very much come to heal and restore today, now. And so when we have people in our life, when we feel like we're trapped, Jesus can and does set us free. When we have people in our life who are very much trapped in sin, the one who can set them free is not it's not our hard work. It's not their hard work. It's Jesus. And we see in this movie, Norman Osborn tries very hard to set himself free, but he can't get away from the Green Goblin part of himself until one of the Spider-Man sets him free. Right? So, in fact, Tobey Maguire steps in to keep one of the other Spider-Man from killing him, and then he gets stabbed. Right?
Yep.
And then they heal him. They save him. They set him free. So very much like the Green Goblin / Norman Osborn, we need someone specific, Jesus, to set us free.
Was he just possessed?
Maybe.
He was like possession to me. I don't know. I'm talking about spiritual warfare over here.
I think another part of that too is yes, we need Jesus. We also need each other. Because I realize in this story, like Tom Holland or the Spider-Men, the Spider-Ways are they're representing God in this point. I think maybe maybe the Cure would be representing Holy Spirit. I don't know, but it just made me think of 1 Corinthians 10:13, where and it's the more common, the temptations of your life are no different from what others experience, and God is faithful. He will not allow temptation to be more than you can stand. When you are tempted, he will show you a way out so you can endure. I never knew the verse before it. If you think you are standing strong, be careful not to fall. Yeah. We need each other, because I've got blind spots and I have weak moments. And it's Priscilla's not here to talk about community. Hi, I'm her husband. I'm going to talk about community. We need each other to make sure that we stand we stand close to Jesus. Because it also, the next verse after that is, so my dear friends, flee from the worship of idols. And lust is an idol. Distractions like entertainment, comparison, idols.
Yeah.
Money, idols. Right. Titles are idols. I can get really easily trapped in them. Because I don't actually remember Osborn's origin. What gave him that? What was he trying to do?
Well, he's trying to do a military experiment for a super soldier serum, essentially.
So he's trying to make himself more powerful?
Well, he did it because they were going to shut down his project.
Right.
So he was like, I'm going to prove it works. And then He went
Sounds
wacko.
like he was doing it on his own.
Surprise. I think too, it's important that when we say we need each other, of course we do. As believers, as brothers and sisters in Christ, like I can't heal you, Jake,
No.
but I can remind you who can. And you can't heal me, but you can remind me
If I
who
can't
can.
make my own appointment, you can remind me.
And I
to
can,
make one.
I can pray with and for you.
Yep.
Yeah.
And make requests to the Lord, prayer and petition, present your requests to the Lord, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's an important distinction too, because oftentimes I think we rush to try to prescribe what to do, or to prescribe healing, or to prescribe, oh, this is how you fix yourself.
I've got a word for
And-
you.
And
That's
oftentimes
especially
it's
a
like,
man thing. I'm gonna give you that.
that's fair.
It's
That's fair.
Men are fixers. So when women are having when I'm having an issue, I go to my friends and we do something called mend and tend. Just like you sit, which I didn't make this up. Okay, I did not make this up.
Say it slower.
Mend and tend.
Mend and tend.
So like
Love
we
it.
sit together and we experience what's going on and we talk and we yappers, and then we feel better because we talked about it and it's over. Now, when I got married, I realized that my husband is not a yapper, and if I just sit there and try to mend and tend with my husband, he's going to tell me how to fix the problem. I don't want to know. I just want to mend and tend. I want to yap. And yeah, so that's a masculine thing typically. If someone comes to me and it's not like, my head hurts, if it's like, well, I don't know what to do with this, I'm going to be like, that's so hard. What else is going on? Da-da-da. Well, men are like, don't talk to them anymore, or get off social media. I don't know. I don't know. You just give like practical advice. For women, I don't always want to hear it, but
It's not about the nail.
What?
Have you guys seen that?
It's
YouTube
not about
video?
the nail.
You
Yeah,
know
that's
exactly. Yep.
literally
Yep.
it.
Okay, wait. Unpack that for me.
So there's
There's a
a
video.
There's a YouTube video where a guy is talking to, I think, his spouse or girlfriend or
Yeah.
something, and she literally has a nail sticking out of her forehead.
Oh, I've seen this.
Yes.
And it's like starting to bleed, and she's like, man, I just got like this really nasty headache. I don't know what to do about it. And the guy's like trying not to like fix the issues, just like, you gotta. And
Like, you're not listening to me.
Yep.
And that's literally me.
Okay, I have seen that video.
Yeah. But anyway, that's something that I was just, when you said that.
But it is an important reminder. We're not the things that fix that help people. Jesus is. Our job is to point people to Jesus.
There we go.
That'll preach.
What a word.
Word. It's a good spot to end.
Period.
Nailed it. Get it? Get it? Huh? Is that about the nail?
Emmy,
Nailed it.
hey.
All right. Hey, if you got a lot out of this podcast, let us know. If you didn't, let us know anyways. But maybe just like in the private comments,
in a
not,
nice
in the
way.
not in the public forum.
I'm gonna
If you
hurt my
think you can
feelings.
fix this podcast,
There you go.
It's not about the nail.
Point us to Jesus, okay? Don't try to tell us how to.
Don't tell us about the nail.
Don't try to save us. Just point us to Jesus. He'll
Don't
save us.
save us. We don't want to be saved.
No, but for real, if you got some further ideas, this is a really popular movie. A lot of people have seen this movie, and a lot of people really like this movie and have a lot to think about and say about this movie. We want to hear it from you, so please hit us up. Let us know. That would be awesome. That would really encourage us a lot. That's all I got. You got anything? No.
Spiderway, no man home.
Spiderway, no man home. You got anything, Kim?
No.
Nope. Jordan?
No.
I do want to say that Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man is canonically the strongest.
Amen. Amen, brother.
Just because he can shoot his own webs.
Well,
he doesn't
there's
need to
that.
reload a web.
But I mean,
shooter.
like physically.
You know what?
strongest.
Now that you say that, I did have a web block.
Yeah, that's right. All right.
Funny.
Till next time, remember, God is at work in pop culture.
Pop.
Bye. Bye. All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to the Pop Culture Redemption Interview Guest Series thing. My name's Connor, and this is Bishop Ryan Mackey.
Hi,
And he's joining us again. He's back again.
back again. The return
Excellent.
of the Mac.
Yes, and we're pumped about it. So that was a long-winded title, the guest series thing, whatever, that we haven't decided on a good catchy name yet. And Ryan here gave us a great recommendation for Pop Off. Call it the Pop Off. So we might do that. We'll see. We'll
Yeah.
see if it sticks.
No royalties necessary.
That's right. Hey, we appreciate that.
Just a citation we'll do in the PopCR autobiography.
Perfect. Asterisk from Bishop Ryan Mackey. So Ryan has been on a previous episode with us. If you have been watching for a while, you will know that he was on our Soul episode in season 1. And we just really enjoyed that conversation. We enjoy you a lot too. So just as in our PopCR group here, Jake, Priscilla, and I, obviously just really enjoy friendship and fellowship and the whole deal with you, and respect you a lot. And so we're really glad to have you back on. So if you don't know who Bishop Ryan Mackey is, he's a bishop in the Communion of Episcopal Evangelical Churches. I messed that up earlier. I got it that time. The CEEC. And he has multiple master's degrees. I'll just list them all. Master's of Arts in Christian Ministry, a Master's of Music History and Literature from Wichita State, a Master's of Arts in Musicology, an emphasis in music theology from Durham University. And that's actually what you are currently working on for your PhD.
Indeed.
Currently working towards a PhD in musicology with an emphasis in music theology from Durham University. Expected to graduate next year.
Summer of 2025, so about 6 months from time of recording. So I'm excited.
The light, you can see the light.
I can see the light. 300 pages later, I can see the light.
So today, when we were talking about having you to come back on the podcast to do this guest interview with us, we were just like, hey, give us a lot of ideas that you have about what you're passionate about, what you're feel like you have some expertise or some experience in different topics, and let's pick one. Let's kind of narrow it down. And you sent us a great list. The last one that you sent us was 90s alternative rock music, and I said, heck yes, that one. So I am pumped. We're gonna that's gonna be our topic today, and we're gonna expand it a little bit. To 90s music in general. And so I'm really excited to dive into this.
I'm pumped. I'm looking forward to it.
So thanks for being on this.
I'm excited. Thank you, and thank you guys for just the whole PopCR crew for doing this. Loved season 1, have really enjoyed season 2, and these one-on-one interviews have also been really great, and excited for what you guys have done, and excited to see what you will do through that. So
that's awesome. Yeah. So maybe the first question is, because maybe audience, you're asking yourself, is 90s music really a pop culture topic
in 2024?
In 2024. So, my question to you right off the bat is, what would you say the relevance? What's the relevance of 90s music today?
So in a sense of full disclosure, so I came of age in the 90s. I was born in 1978. So I was, on the verge of being a teenager. I was a tween when the 90s started, and I was in my 20s when the 90s ended. And I think there's something about the music that you're listening to when you're coming of age, when you're in that kind of 12 to 20 range, that sticks with you. And when you're almost 30 years on from that, as I am, there's a lot of that music that pulls you back to a different time, different era, what you were doing. That's the power of music anyway. For me, though, that particular soft spot is 90s music. I think just from like a purely nostalgic point of view, like I am seeing at this time of recording, the last couple 3 years, I have seen more and more of my college students dressing how my friends and I dressed in the 90s. There was the whole Friends revival, people who were not even alive when Friends ended, who are into the show. And part of that has to do with a lot of their parents are my age or pretty close, so would have been listening to some of this music when they were in the 90s, or when they were like in their 20s and teens in the 90s. So I think that part of that is that handing on of some kind of a cultural identity or something from generation to generation. Those of us who were kind of late Gen Xers, and then of this kind of bridge generation called Xennials, or the Oregon Trail generation from like about 1976, 77 up to about 1983. There's just a lot of songs and a lot of music that we remember. And what's been fascinating to me is, so one of my responsibilities at the college, at Central Christian here, is I work with the performance lab bands. That's something I've done for most of my tenure there. And a funny thing happened a couple of years ago, that when I would ask the students for input for songs that they wanted to do, there was a lot of 90s music on there. And I kind of scratched my head and I was like, okay, can I ask a silly question? They're like, yeah, sure. And I was like, how do you know this music? And they're like, oh, it's what our parents listen to. And I'm like, well, how old are your parents? and then to come to find out that they're my age. And I was like, okay, that's really cool. And a little bit like, oh, so you'd be like my kids. Wow. Okay. That's a little bit of a change. I think that some of the themes that emerge in 90s music, now I'm making big blanket statements. And I realize that even as I say some of this, you could apply it to the music of the 80s, the 70s, the 60s, just ad infinitum, however far back you want to go. I do think that there were some things that were present in the 90s in terms of cultural attitudes, particularly in the United States and maybe parts of Europe, that we were new, were different, were a little bit uncertain. Like just to kind of reflect for a moment, like the early 90s, we had the AIDS pandemic that was really big. We had the first attempt on the World Trade Center. We had the Oklahoma City bombing. We had just come out of the Cold War in the late 80s. There were the economic boom that had happened in the 80s had washed over into the 90s. The internet really started, like AOL. Email, all that really began in a more consumer thing in the 90s. So there's a lot of those different types of things that began to emerge. The video game culture exploded in the 90s. Movie culture really became a new thing in the 90s. And so the use and the placement of music became, even in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, so y'all out there take it for what it's worth. But there was maybe a new way of looking at music that the world, popular culture, hadn't really used. And for those who were in their 20s and teens, writing some of this music, and 30s as well, writing some of this music and expressing some of those ideas and thoughts. When you're a teenager and you're listening to some of that, you're just like, yeah, that's how I identify. And some of those ideas of like belonging, love, some topics I'm sure we'll get into, like you said, regardless of time period, regardless of time frame, as a musicologist, I can take you back into the 19th century or the 18th century and identify some of the same things. But then as time has kind of accelerated and compressed, as so many things expand here, the 90s are kind of this interesting microcosm of a lot of things that are going on, regardless of kind of like what genre or genres of music that you look at. So, and we've got the birth of some new music genres as well in the 90s. So,
yeah. No, that's awesome. And I think, like what you talked about, music, like culture, builds upon what has come before. And so to say that music doesn't have any relevance today that came before, especially something as near as the 90s,
right,
is because that's only like, if you think about music in decades, that's only 3 like iterations ago,
right,
of music. To say that it doesn't have any influence today is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So
I remember when I was a kid growing up, like in the 80s, usually on Saturdays, my parents would turn on the oldies station and they do housework, gardening out in the yard and stuff like that. And they would play music from the 50s and 60s and maybe a little bit from the early 70s. And now the oldies stations are playing stuff from the 90s.
Yeah.
And when I first started hearing that, I was like, I'm not sure how I feel about this. But I've learned to embrace it because it's an opportunity for me to teach a whole new generation about that music and about what culture was like back then. So
Absolutely.
That's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And I feel like our culture too right now, at least, is in this moment where maybe the last 5 to 8 years has been a lot more thrifty.
Yeah.
Like what you talked about, you see students wearing styles from the 90s or they're making references to shows from the 90s.
Yep.
There seems to be a lot more of culture going back in time for new and fresh ideas or a different way to put personality or their own spin on things today too. So
definitely.
Absolutely. So you talked about some of the themes from the 90s music. You just hit on it quickly. I mean, what would you say some of the themes from 90s music stick out to you? Like as particularly unique or defining? of that genre or that era?
I think when you look at like, and I'm going to talk a little bit more for like 90s alternative music and alternative rock, because like if you look at the alternative album category in the Grammys, it's kind of the, and I don't say this disparagingly because some of my favorite albums have won this category. It's kind of the category for the albums that don't fit in the rock category, R&B, country, hip hop. I mean, like Bon Iver's won that category. Gautier won that category for his album Making Mirrors. Beck has won that category multiple times.
Yeah. So,
it's not for the ones that fit neatly into a category. That being said, from some of the songs and albums that I remember from that time, there's a lot of exploration of existentialism in the 90s. Again, we were coming out of the 80s. There was a lot of uncertainty in the 80s. I mean, I remember being a kid and hearing about the Cold War, and we thought that the world was going to end. We thought that the USSR and the United States were going to blow each other up. That was the reality that we lived in as kids and as just the world. And so you had this group of, teens and 20-somethings and 30-somethings entering into the 90s. And so you get into these ideas of, it's in the moment, it's live for today, and again, these are all biblical themes. This is Ecclesiastes, this is some of what you read about in Proverbs. So again, there's nothing new under the sun. But to put it to this generation and to do it in such a way that a lot of people would say was very angsty. My generation, Gen X and the Xennials, we're seen as a very angsty generation. And I mean, when you got bands named like Rage Against the Machine, I mean, that says something. And so you do, and Rage is actually a really good example of some of that music. Album titles like The Battle for Los Angeles, Bulls on Parade, People of the Sun, Nirvana. I mean, you can't have this conversation about kind of existentialism without Nirvana. Nihilism kind of dovetailing into that as well. I mean, kind of the 90s grunge anthem of Smells Like Teen Spirit. It's almost become a trope these days. But if you rewind back 30 years, I mean, that was like the hard-hitting anthem for a lot of people. Most of the music that I think of when I think about that, it wasn't being played on Top 40 radio. There was one radio station in the area, T95 out of Wichita, which was like T95, Wichita's alternative rock station. You know? And that's how they built themselves. And so you could hear like the grunge and alternative stuff, and it would be, some of it very quirky, and some of it very much like, get your aggression out, break stuff, sort of a thing. So I think that, kind of those more negative aspects of like existentialism, nihilism, we kind of got a lot about the goth movement, really took off in that era. You saw like White Zombie, Marilyn Manson, a lot of those groups really kind of had it. Slipknot, Insane Clown Posse really saw a rise to that. But on the flip side, there was a bunch of just like there was a bunch of one-hit wonders in the 90s too. There was a bunch of music that, interestingly enough, sounded really peppy, but at the same time, you go back and you listen to the lyrics and you're just like, oh, okay. So they juxtapose like this really kind of peppy music with like these kind of darker lyrics. So like Santeria by Sublime comes to mind, where it's like this very kind of like, it's got this offbeat guitar kind of reggae sort of feel. And there's a line in there about sticking a shotgun down a guy's mouth. And you're just like, well, that's kind of morbid. That's kind of dark.
Yeah.
And yet I'm scrolling through my 90s flashback list here. Just to see if ska was really big, like third wave ska, really picked up, and so a lot of the ska music. I mean, that was some of the fun stuff that you got into. Groups like Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, Real Big Fish, the swing revival that happened with groups like Big Bad Voodoo Daddy. A lot of that music was just really fun, and so here you had like these like the punk kids, the grunge kids, the goth kids, and then you had the swing kids, and they like would all kind of like mix and meld together. So you've got like the song "Sell Out" by Real Big Fish, which basically describes like the whole process of getting a record deal, and we're gonna sell out because they said if we sign this contract, we make lots of money, and that's kind of what we want to do. You've got songs like "Fly" by Sugar Ray. Again, I'm just kind of scrolling my list here. Camel Walk by Southern Culture on the Skids, which is really kind of an offbeat one. Same with Banditos by the Refreshments, which my favorite line in the song is probably, you show your ID card to the border guard. Your ID says you're Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the United Federation of the Planets. And I'm just like, that, I mean, that's a nice, I mean, it's kind of like, okay, all right. But then you've also got ones to kind of dip back to kind of the existential one. There's a group called Nada Surf, and there's a song called Popular, which is interesting because it's kind of a spoken word piece. But it's basically this, okay, girls, you want to get the guy? You want to know how to be popular? This is how you do it. And it's very tongue-in-cheek, but it's like very, very, very angsty, very aggressive. And also during the 90s, that kind of dovetails into this, like MTV has changed. Like MTV started August 1st of 1981 with the music video, Video Killed the Radio Star by the Buggles. And fast forward into the 90s, just 10 years later, and music videos have changed. MTV changed by then. But the technology that was around and the video production really revved up in the 90s. And that's what set the tone, because you had everything from like TLC's Waterfall videos, which was very cutting edge at the time, through, I think, Limp Bizkit's Freak on a Leash also came out in the 90s, which used some of the same technology like the Wachowski brothers were using in The Matrix, and things like that, to really kind of set that up. I got to say, in terms of quirky songs, one of my absolute favorites is one by a band called Geggy Ta, and it's called Whoever You Are. And it's just about like driving your car around and listening to the radio. And the chorus is, all I want to do is to thank you, even though I don't know who you are. You who let me change lanes while I was driving in my car. And I'm like, well, I mean, how like everyday common is that? It's just kind of like, hey. And the music video is just like all these people driving around and just kind of like, thanking people. It's like, hey, hey, thanks for letting me change lanes while I'm out here cruising around.
That's
just
awesome.
Listening to radio.
Yeah, I found you shared your 90s flashback playlist with me a couple of days ago, and I've been just listening through it. And I was surprised at how many songs I was like, oh, that's from the, oh, yeah, I know that song. I know all over the place down the line.
Which ones caught your attention?
The Rage Against the Machine ones. That were really, I was like, there you go.
Yep. Yeah.
Just and this is a comment, I think, for many of those songs. I just noticed how, maybe you can speak to this, how compared to today's music in comparison, I just really noticed how lyrically driven the songs are.
Yeah.
A lot of the music as I was listening through that playlist was like the instrumentation wasn't super fancy, super crazy. Like some of it is very well done still, but it seemed a little simpler than what I experienced today listening to pop music from today.
Yeah.
But the lyrics are so much clearer, and the storytelling, I think specifically, and a lot of it just seemed more thought out, in depth, deeper than what is going on today.
Yeah.
Do you notice that?
I do. I do think that, and again, you can find this throughout, but I think that in the 90s, you started to see more space for self-expression. As a teacher of music technology, I'll tell you that when I started recording stuff in the mid 90s, and then when I started really purchasing my own gear in the late 90s, early aughts, the price of stuff came down tremendously. So it made the opportunity to be able to record and put your music, and we're doing cassette tapes and CDs back then. Napster comes out in 99, I think it is. So, that kind of P2P file sharing and stuff isn't really a thing. But I remember my first band, we played stuff in my parents' basement, and we were like dubbing cassette tapes and stuff for friends. And then later on we were burning discs. And I think the opportunity to be able to share your story and tell your story really kind of reemerged with this group or this decade, this era, because this is also the era when you see a lot more women out there, like Sarah McLachlan, Lilith Fair, the number of women who became top 40. They were writing their own songs, including country artists like Shania Twain. You can say what you want about, image and different things, but Shania was writing songs. You had Sarah McLachlan, you had Sean Colvin, Jewel. Jewel was a big voice. And speaking of big voice, I mean, she sang opera, she yodeled, she did all these things, and her voice was very unique in that time. You had Alanis Morissette, you had Paula Cole, you had some of these groups that may not have seen the light of day with a record label, but the indie music scene grew. The origins of emo come out during this time, and tape trading, and which had already existed for decades with groups like the Grateful Dead. I'd go to shows with the DIY aesthetic, the punk aesthetic that really moved into the grunge aesthetic, gave more opportunity for people to talk, and we wanted to talk, and we wanted to hear people talk. Right. Like we wanted to hear them tell stories, and whether it was about an idea or an emotion or a trope that we knew or something we knew nothing about, we wanted to hear it. And whether it came with talking about Rage Against the Machine, if it came with Tom Morello's guitar parts and Zach De La Rocha's, fiery vocals, or whether it came with, Jewel or Duncan Sheik or Tal Bachman. We wanted to hear these people, whether they were one-hit wonders or whether they went on to have really great careers. We wanted to hear them tell stories. Under the Bridge by Red Hot Chili Peppers is a really great example of that. It tells a really great story. Is nothing like most of the stuff that you heard from Red Hot Chili Peppers before, but it was actually a turning point for them, because as they have emerged over the last 25 years, I mean, I think their first record came out in 86 or 87. So they're closing in on 40 years of being a band. And they're good storytellers. And I think once you move past, whether it's the look, the vibe, the theatrics, you can dig into some of these, and you can find some really good storytellers. And sometimes they're just talking about what they know. My eyes just fell on Southtown by POD. And they're talking about what it was like being raised in San Diego, near the Mexican border, and what that was like being in that part of the world, in that city, and what, it's kind of like you hear in a lot of hip hop and rap music from that time. It's like, am I going to live? Is this going to be where I'm ultimately going to die? Am I going to, is life going to go on beyond this place? Am I ever going to get out of here? And we wanted to hear those stories because, again, 90s, we're starting to get technology. I learned about genres of music that, being a kid raised in the Great Plains, I mean, I grew up just 30 minutes south of here in Hutchinson. I knew hardly anything about hip hop music or rap music, except for what was top 40. And then I got to experience more through some of the alternative stations and stuff like MTV. So that was a pretty big shift.
Yeah. What would you, like, as we kind of tie this in now to God and pop culture, what within those themes of those different groups or those different common threads kind of running through this era, what are some ways that you either saw or continue to see God moving, working, speaking through this cultural moment of the 90s?
So interestingly enough, one of the songs that if I was going to like rejoice, reject, redeem, one of the songs I think I could both reject and redeem would be the song "Counting Blue Cars" by Dishwalla. It's a great one-hit wonder song. But the chorus famously says, "Tell me all your thoughts on God, because I'm on my way to see her." So obviously the rejecting of maybe some of like the 90s, as you're starting to get into some of these different takes on God and things of that nature, or and I'm blanking on her name in this moment. Joan Osborne, "One of Us." What if God was one of us?
Oh, yeah.
Just a slob like one of us, just a stranger on a bus, I think that for the people that wrote a lot of the alternative and popular music in the 90s, and for those of us who heard it, consumed it, played it, both on, CDs and records and cassettes, as well as, picked up a guitar or something and played it, there seems to always be a searching. Because even in the midst of saying, tell me all your thoughts on God, and you can read the lyrics through, and it's like there is still this idea of a searching, of a trying to find. You go down some of the songs like "Bullet with Butterfly Wings" by Smashing Pumpkins. Very first line of the song: "The world is a vampire," and you're just like, "Oh, well, this isn't going to go well." And I think for a lot of those groups, I think about like Live, the band Live, who did Lightning Crashes and I Alone. Ed Kowalczyk has talked about his journey, as has Billy Corgan from Smashing Pumpkins. They've talked about their spiritual journeys, and it is interesting to hear how, like, maybe as younger men, younger people, they had one view of the world. Maybe they got, any number of things. Maybe they got abused. Maybe they got hurt. Maybe they got disillusioned. Somebody told them one thing and they believed it, and it was a complete lie, whatever it might be. But to realize that there wasn't a shying away from some of those ideas. Again, I'm looking at my list, and the song "Jeremy" by Pearl Jam, which is a song about a kid who commits suicide in front of his class. That's a heartbreaking thing to think about, and it was a top 40 song, and yet to realize that even in the midst of those kind of ideas, you can, and even again, I'm sorry, I'm scrolling as I'm looking. "Losing My Religion" by REM. Michael Stipe would talk about all these things that led to his disillusionment with religion, but there is. So I just found "I Believe" by Blessed Union of Souls, and the chorus of that one says, "I believe love is the answer. Love will find a way." Now, in this moment, they may be speaking about romantic love, human language limited in its description of love. But we as Christians know that truly love, capital L love, is the answer, that God is the answer. And whether some of these people realized it or not, some of their commentary, some of the ideas that they were bumping up against is scriptural, is part of the teaching of the church, the capital T tradition of the church. And whether they knew it, whether they thought they were trying to appropriate it in a way that they were basically kind of like thumbing their nose at the church, or, we were kids in the 90s, so probably worse than that. But to realize that those were some of the mindsets and the attitudes, but that spiritual undercurrent that was always there. Moby is really good at that. Moby, the electronic and alternative music producer, he would call himself like a Christian from the perspective of a follower of Jesus, but not necessarily part of the institutional church. And his music is just like full of some of those themes. Even dipping back into like some old spirituals and stuff about like, no one knows my troubles but God, and to realize that I think my generation and those who were writing the music at the time, they really wanted to talk about that. They wanted to talk about God. Some people really wanted to rub it in your face, like in a bad way, in a confrontational way, like kind of show me this God of yours. But then there was a lot of people who were genuinely seeking. I think honestly, I think Kurt Cobain was seeking some of that. I think that maybe Chris Cornell from Soundgarden, who sadly has passed away as well. I think there was a lot of those guys and gals who achieved a certain something in the 90s, who were brilliant songwriters and who were honestly really deep thinkers. It may not have always come out in their lyrics, but they always seem to be like brushing up against something. And maybe this is just, because there's a lot of fluff in 90s music as well. We haven't even talked about a lot of that, but I think that there was a lot of brooding back in the 90s. And I think I'm starting to see that a little bit more with songwriters of maybe the last 10 to 15 years. And maybe I just haven't listened to much of the stuff I should over the last 5 years to find some of that again. But I do think that there are some people who are really trying to take on some of these themes now. I'd like to think it's because maybe they've dipped back and they've listened to some of this music from the 90s and they've been like, oh, you mean I can actually talk about this kind of stuff? You know, I can, you know, like No Doubt's I'm Just a Girl. You mean I can talk about what it's like to be female, or what it's like to, you know, again, POD, what it's like to come from this place or that place or the other place. You know, I can have fun. I can have fun with music, and it's okay. And it doesn't always have to be about the money or the members of the opposite sex or the excess. We can just talk about like changing lanes in my car while I'm out driving, and that's okay. And people would actually listen to it. It's like, yeah, we would.
Yeah.
Because sometimes that's all. Because sometimes that's what we want. I mean, it's not just we're trying to escape. You know, that's not an escapist thing. That's just commenting on everyday life. And I think that's, you know, I think that's some of the best that we can get. And, you know, to tie one more 90s song from a movie in, you know, from Toy Story, You've Got a Friend in Me. I mean, it's a really basic idea. It's a really basic concept, but Randy Newman just sits there and spells out a really basic principle that we all share with people, or we should, if nothing else. And maybe that level of authenticity that we tried for, I don't know if we always got there, but the level of authenticity we tried for in the 90s, maybe that's something I could, you know, offer to the younger generations and say, you know, we tried to be authentic, you know, in our ripped up, well, my mom wouldn't let me out in ripped up jeans, but for my other friends who had ripped up jeans, and our Vans, our Chucks, our Doc Martens, and our messy hair and flannel shirts, you know, we tried for authenticity. And sometimes we hit it and sometimes we didn't. And I also think that that's where the Christian life comes in, is to listen to, and we talked about this before we hit record, the Christian bands that were coming out of the doing the alternative music and the alternative rock, and again, trying to live the authentic life and trying to express that authenticity, maybe in a way we hadn't seen in the church in the 80s, but that we needed to talk to, because kind of like the prophet said, it's like a fire shut up in my bones, and I've got to say something. And even if it's not to, like, you know, the powers that be, if it's, you know, peer to peer, if it's us being able to talk, but we do it through music and songwriting and lyrics and stuff, that's enough.
Yep.
So,
no, that's great. I think when you talk about authenticity today, I feel like, I mean, I'm starved for it. I feel like people today are starved for that authenticity because, well, there's probably a whole bunch of reasons. A main reason would be just social media. Like you're always putting something out that is edited, that is filtered, that is, oh, I'm going to show that, but not this. And we're going to show that. And an assumption that everything that you see from other people, especially online, is filtered, is like not completely the whole story, right? Edited. And that's a good word. I like that a lot. I think that was very apt. And the conversation you had too about earlier on about nihilism, existentialism, that kind of stuff. I definitely see that at work, even in, like, I think about my friends and I, we really enjoy the movie The Big Lebowski. And like nihilism, existentialism, that is like, and that was the 90s, right? In the middle of the 90s. And I was like, yep, right there. Another topic.
Oh man.
Going through this. Well, I think that's a pretty good spot to start.
I think so.
Or stop. Stop. We just started. So
Episode 2.
I feel like we could talk for a long time about this. This is really good. Thanks for doing this again.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Connor. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
I really enjoyed that. So welcome, or thank you for listening to today's pop-off guest interview series, whatever. I don't know what to call it, but we're good. So thanks again for being on.
Pleasure.
Until next time, remember, God is at work in pop culture and 90s music. We'll see you next time.